So my name's Tracy Richter. I am Vice President of Planning Services for a group called HPM. I am what you call an educational facility planner. I'm a former educator, and then about 25 years ago I got into this business and I work with school districts across the country to really look at the capital and facility needs from a little different viewpoint than just facilities. Our approach is really about programs, condition of facilities. Obviously programs are the cornerstone of what we do, but how we align those facilities to the programs, to the demographic enrollments, to those changes of demographics, and obviously to the funding. And so, as you can imagine, not always easy work, because part of my work is consolidation, part of my work is boundary changes, but in the 25 years I've also put together plans for about $15 billion worth of school construction in the country too. So a lot of great stuff and a lot of realignment stuff that school districts obviously have to go through. But I've been really fortunate to do this across the country and several times in Georgia. I've worked a lot in Florida, a lot in Alabama too. So the Southeast is kind of what I've been doing this in for a while. I do currently and have been for the last 25 years, lived in Columbus, Ohio. I'm not local to anywhere I work, it feels like. And but that's okay. I think that one of the things that I hope you learn about me is that my commitment to education is second to none. I mean, I've been doing this a really long time, almost 30 years in education. My commitment is to align the best facilities for the programs for the kids. And I know that comes with some pain points occasionally, but that's ultimately my goal. And so when Dr. Bradshaw called me to help him with this process, part of it was we just have to do this better. We have to look at this from a more holistic standpoint than just a school by school, and then put together a more concise 5- and 10-year vision of what the school district looks like. This was a project that was actually already here before I came in, which I was really excited about, that a middle school was actually a project that was on a list. But I know this also comes with some change, and so I get really interested in, after we put the plans together, the success of the plan is the details of how we get it to the end, which includes interest from alumni associations, from student body, from administration, to make sure that we get this to where we need to get it to. Because a good facilities plan isn't just about the facilities, it really is about how we integrate that into the culture of Augusta and bring the legacy forward where it matters. I will tell you that I'm not a big fan of legacy and tradition standing in the way of programs in progress, and I don't think you guys are either. I've heard from Dr. Davis's comments. I know you guys are excited about the new project also, so that's good news. I want to help you get it across the line where you want to get it to, so that's why I'm here. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to first, Ben, do you mind helping me on this really quick? I want to take you through just the design of the building. I want to show you kind of what you can look forward to, and then we can talk. And then quickly I want to show you kind of the board policy, and I'm going to tell you how we work around some board policy too, and then see kind of where you guys want to be as far as how we move forward with you, and as far as how we bring some things forward from Tutt into the new facilities, even from a physical standpoint, and then make sure we know how to get involved in the forward progress of naming and then hear your concerns also that you have. Okay. Again, I'm recording this for the board also, because they'll give this video to the board too, so they know that they're going to see, we want to archive everything. We want to make sure everything's on record for you. And we also know that this won't be our last conversation with you, and we're super excited about that too. So Ben, I'm going to, yep, there you are.
Okay, I'm Ben Starks. I'm the Senior Director for Facility Services. I'm in charge of facilities, which is the facility plan. All right, so the new Langford Tutt School has been talked about for a while. We also have the campus. If you remember, for those, well, all you've been around for a while, you remember the campus had Forest Hills on the left, on the right side. If you faced the campus, there was Forest Hills Elementary. There was Langford to the left. So several years ago, we removed Forest Hills. That's how we have Lake Forest Hills. That was a combination of the schools. And y'all familiar that this has been going on for years, that we've consolidated schools. So the first phase of construction that's in SPLOST 6, that's the SPLOST we're in now, is only to do the design and the first phase of construction. So when you see we talk about construction, you're like, why didn't y'all finish? Well, the rest of the construction is in SPLOST 7. So I just want to be clear about that. So if you're thinking we're going to build this in a year, we are not. So we're going to install the first administrative side. The building to the left that was last installed on campus will remain. We're going to come on the, if you're facing the campus, be on your right side and build out the right side and some connection areas toward the Forest Hill side. And that'll be the first phase of the construction. So that's one reason we need to clear the campus so we don't have a live construction site on campus. We've done that before. It's not ideal, but it can be done. But it will prolong because we have to do everything in phasing. All right, that's the big broad strokes of it. Now this new campus will have, it'll have an auditorium, probably a sloped auditorium with seats. It also has, if you can see right here in the middle, right there, it also has an amphitheater, an outdoor amphitheater. So there will be outdoor learning spaces in it. So this is kind of the new vision of our middle schools and high schools, to have outdoor learning spaces as well as theater, amphitheater type spaces, things that they haven't had before, because neither Langford nor Tutt has a theater or auditorium like that. So this is the next phase of what we hope to accomplish. Any questions?
So there's some other pictures. If you push that arrow forward, I think we got some other views.
Let me get out of the way here.
Sorry.
I'm blocking the camera. I'll be in the way no matter what I do. So this is the original building over here, and you'll see this is the Forest Hill site. And Cheatham Fletcher Scott is the one who designed the new Bel Air School. So if you've been in that facility and seen how that looks, it'll be that same design team. These guys do a really good job of some of our cutting edge schools. This is our drop-off area. It also will allow us to have a longer queue, because a lot of the parents now drive their kids, even if they're in the walk zone, so we have to have a long enough queue to get people off the street. This is the front sense of arrival. This is a plan view or elevation view of the sense of arrival through the main circle. This is the admin entrance here. So this kind of outlays, let me see if this is the first phase. I believe this is the existing building here, and this is the lower level and the amphitheater shown here. So this is the building that was put on about 8 years ago. That always gets to be a question. It's like, well, you spend all this money, what are you going to do with it? So we try not to, if it's something that's salvageable, salvage it, of course.
And the gymnasium will be a new build?
Yes, right there. We've talked about saving it. Right now, we're planning on a new build. So, I mean, that may be something to change depending on some other things, some other factors. Okay?
And a point of disclosure, I taught him in the ninth grade.
That's what he said.
So I was really tripping over my words, like, now's not a good time to end your sentences with prepositions. All right, thank you, Eric.
So then there is, I'll pull it up here. I just want to take you quickly through, I think it's maybe right here. Oh, here it is. Okay, so from the naming policy that the board has in place, one of the things, and I know this is of concern, but I do think that, so the board members, so first there's a setup of a committee, okay, and then it's to the pleasure of the superintendent to set up that committee. Obviously, there's two board members that help represent this, which is Mr. Eubanks and Charlie Walker, which is, in my opinion, really good advocates in this case. The board president is a Tutt alumni.
True.
And so that's really good. And he's really committed to this too. I've talked to Charlie, so you know that, Dr. Davis, so that's good. Now and then also there's obviously the superintendent, the two board members, and then they have 3 people from the schools. They'll have representations from each of the buildings, and then they'll have community members, which we expect that you will contribute to that group.
Yes.
And so, now typically the process would be that, so if it was anticipated open in the 26-27 year, they would do that naming at the beginning of the 20, so that fall of 25, when they start that school year, they would start that committee for this naming. Okay? So that gives you a context of kind of when they typically do that process. Now, here's the thing, is that this last one, and I think this was intended for like buildings that didn't exist too, and they worked through this, but it's been a practice of the Board of Education that anything built subsequent to 1978 that have those names, but since then they have stopped the practice of naming buildings after people.
Right.
And so, and there's some probably legitimate. I mean, you know, Tracy Richter's always been a fan of PS1, PS2, PS3 because it makes life a little simpler in my world. You know, try to close a Washington or Martin Luther King school, and it gets difficult because the name alone does that. Now, in this case, though, you know, the board is looking to make an exception for this one because the names already exist on a building.
Right.
And you're combining schools, and I think they'd like to keep the practice of at least a combination. But I do think that in this case, trying to figure out how that Tutt name reaches forward first will be really important here. And I think that's, again, with the board members that you have on here, I think that you've got advocates for you in that. So I'm really pleased with that. So I just wanted to take you down that road really quick so you know, because I know that last piece is a concern. But I don't think it's not an obstacle, but I don't think it's an overcomable obstacle for this group.
Do you foresee some specific opposition to that?
I don't, and look, I've had meetings with the individual board members as we've gone through this process, and we've talked about this. I have not felt any resistance on the board to this, quite to the contrary. That I do think, one of the things we talk a lot about in this district is legacy and tradition. Almost sometimes to the detriment of students, but this isn't something that's to the detriment of students at all. This is not that. This is something quite different, I think. And so I don't see any.
Okay.
And I'm not sure I've heard much resistance from that kind of, even at this point, from that Langford community that's a name that has to move on.
Right. And I took note of that, and I shared with the other board members when I returned from the meeting that no one spoke at all regarding the name of Langford. And so I took that as a positive.
I thought so too. Yeah, and frankly, I'm not sure I would have. I didn't hear. Usually, you get kind of cues to who's going to show up to these things. Obviously, you get some recon on it, and although I'm surprised that somebody didn't come up with it, I'm not surprised at all either. So.
And I think one thing I've seen, the community around the school, a lot of gentrification. A lot of people don't have kids going there, and I guess for lack of a better word, you have, I won't say elitism, but you have people that have children that live in that community will not send their kids to that school. They will send them to Westminster, the Episcopal Day School, and so forth. So they really don't have that vested interest in that particular school site.
So hopefully,
yeah,
hopefully, I mean, what we're going to try to do programmatically here, I think that certainly the IB program is going to be in this school. The middle school pathway to IB will be at this school, which I think is a very positive thing. I think it creates pathways for students who might have left before. Also, my understanding is there are going to be 7 pathways for exploratory in this, between art and music and those kind of pathways, because with the IB program you get some expanded exploratories because it's part of the curriculum. And so hopefully what will happen is that, and then look, we've done some realignment of the boundaries, feeder patterns, and we understand that there are some dynamics, societal dynamics at work in that area that we're trying to address. And it's not something we should overlook.
Right.
I mean, I think that, I think you heard me say in the meeting that I'm not willing to let, kind of thugs decide our decisions on the programs, and wherever they're coming from. I think that we shape our schools to try to eliminate that. And so I think by what we've tried to do here is we've tried to set up the structure now where these students are actually starting in kindergarten together, and by the time they get to middle school, they're not separated by school. Because I think schools actually do contribute to that kind of conflict that happens. I think school boarders do that, along with, systemic things that have happened in the city do it. So we've tried to minimize some of that concern.
How far east will the boundary be for the new school?
So, Matt, do we have,
We don't have,
I wonder if
Will
I
it
have
go
it up
down
here.
Broad Street, past Mildred Road, or?
so the current.
Go ahead, Matt, you can do that while I'm just pulling this up really quick.
From the current Langford boundary, the Copeland and Reynolds attendance areas, those will go to the new Bel Air Middle.
Right.
So all of the current Tutt students would go to the new school, as well as the students that are in the Montesano attendance area, and currently Lake Forest Hills splits between Tutt and Langford, so the portion that's in Langford would remain at the new building. So as far as, I guess, the eastern, I'm sorry.
Toward downtown.
Yeah, so I guess the eastern edge of the boundary would be kind of that Montesano area, just kind of east of ARC. A few blocks east of ARC would kind of be the eastern edge. Yeah.
What would be the capacity of the new school?
So
Students.
so this will give you a good idea. So the end capacity of the new building is going to be. Let me sure, Ben. Make sure I get this right. I'm sorry, Ben. The new capacity here.
1,000.
It'll be 1,000. So this is kind of that current in here. Let me see if I got it up here. So the proposed idea is that there's going to be, and we don't have this because it's going to be 1,000. The new live-in, so this is how many 6th through 8th students live in this current boundary, so as you see it. And so now we know that not all of them attend. We have, I think, I think there's just over 130 kids that leave this boundary in middle school to go to a magnet. And so if we were to kind of consider that, the building will be for 1,000. If that were to kind of hold, let's just say that we didn't lose any students or that number kind of stayed the same around 900, we know there would be about 750 kids that would be attending that building, which in an academic sense, 750 is like a spot-on number for middle grades enrollment. And the reason that we like that number is that if you think about 3 grades at 250, and you think about teams of 125, that's how middle school likes to be taught. So you can teach a lot of different ways. We're all used to the bell schedule. We all went on 7 periods, and when that bell rang, we left, right? But this gives a school an opportunity to change direction if they want to go to more of a team concept, which means that a team of teachers would have 125 kids that they were responsible for, not 750 kids. And so it's a better teaching model for middle grades education. They have abilities to do that now at this building. First of all, the way it's constructed, and the number of students that we anticipate having here allows that flexibility. And when you can start to create teams of 125 instead of a school of 750, then you start to minimize those kind of bad things that happen in middle school. And so hopefully the district will align some of that together. So I think it's a good number. This is right now for where the capacity is. We're not worried that that's the current capacity at Tutt. We actually know we're going to be able to fit all the kids in for a year. I think that was a concern, but we know that with the number of students leaving the area right now, and with taking the Copeland students out and moving them over to Bel Air, I think we're okay. So like I said, I would anticipate this building to stay at 750, and I think that's a healthy enrollment for this building. But if there's any growth because of, and what I hope is that some of those students who were choosing not to go at one point now see those pathways in IB and the exploratory courses to just stay this pathway. So it's a good one.
Timeline for getting back to the naming piece. As you indicated, normally that occurs closer to move-in for that. Is there a probability of that being accelerated so that that can take place and be fixed before you get to, people become a little more emotional once the structure
It's
is
a little
there.
closer. I will ask the board of that. I will certainly, I'll inquire with Dr. Bradshaw. I can't give you an exact answer to that. I mean, my thought was when I saw when they typically do this, because I haven't been through that process with them, is that the sooner the better.
Yeah.
You just kind of lay something to rest, and then you're just moving forward.
Right.
So I will pass that along to Dr. Bradshaw and the board members to see if that can be accelerated. There's nothing in policy that says it has to be there, so I don't know why they couldn't alter, because it doesn't obstruct policy. So I will definitely make that ask for you and get involved a little sooner.
I think I'll kind of address out our concern, as we shared earlier. We are realistic about school location.
Okay.
I did a little piece I'm going to share with you all on Tutt history, and we understand going back, the original space was so compact that, and I went through board minutes and so forth, that the school was designed actually in the two wings. They were not even designed to be connected because the topography did not yield itself. And later on, they did put a little connecting, which was originally was going to be just a concrete walkway, but it evolved into the breezeway. So we're realistic about what can happen at that site and what can't happen, and to put a state-of-the-art school there, it's not realistic. So we accept that as we share, but our concern is to maintain the school name so that that legacy extends itself. So that's our focus as a group.
Okay.
I'm a school guy. Matter of fact, I actually did a study on financing school facilities back in 1990, which precluded the SPLOST being passed by our state legislature, and this possibly was part of the research base for that. But we really want to see that Tutt legacy extend itself, and I'll share this with you as well. This is a last annual that was there, Tutt. I don't know if you had the opportunity to see one of these.
I have not seen them.
And there's one reference in here, and I'll read for everybody. It said, in January of 1959, Mr. Earl Thurman, the first principal of this school, Tutt, initiated the idea of honoring Mr. John M. Tutt on his birthday. On January 14th of each year, we celebrate John M. Tutt Day. There have been interesting programs presented such as This Is Your Life and with speakers and so forth. And the traditional school colors, red and black, were worn by faculty and students each year on that day. And so that tradition, that's just one example of some of the traditions that we put in place there with that.
Oh, wow.
And
So you marked another.
Mr. Tutt he was a physical presence there at that school. He wasn't just a name that somebody threw out and said, we're gonna put it on the building.
Right.
He would come to the school there, and until his passing, I think in 1968, I believe it was. I made a note that his wife actually wrote the lyrics to the school alma mater. I don't know if they still retain that alma mater, but
Really?
she wrote that and passed it around. what's in that is, so we had a class reunion, a school reunion back in 17, and I did a little historical background on it. And kind of went into a lot of the archives upstairs from the old board minutes. And one of the things, let's see, you can read this in your pledge, but one thing I want to point out as far as the names are concerned. Let me find that particular passage. Okay, there, like over on page 3, I got it highlighted there, I believe. At one point, population of the school district had the opposite problem that it has now. It was growing, not declining. And Tutt was a 10 classroom building. I've got whatever you anticipate that enrollment would be. Far exceeded that because kids from in this area downtown were actually bussed out to Tutt and Weed for about a year. But what transpired, there was the Davison School, which was an old building, had been closed. And so to alleviate that overcrowding, the board decided to reopen Davison School. The old building, not where they are now, but it's there on Telfair Street. But as highlighted there, the importance of a name, there was a decision by the board that they could not have black kids attend that school named after Mr. Davison. So they changed the name of that school during the time those kids were there to Telfair Street School. And until they built other capacity to move them out of that old, which was an old dilapidated building. And it later came back as the magnet school, and then it reassumed the name of Davidson. And that's just one example of the power of naming a facility and what how some people take it strongly with that.
Sure.
So
I find it interesting, just historically, that they would, after naming so many schools after people, then they wouldn't recognize the importance of a person of color to name that school. They just name it after the street, which is, of course, that's the time. I mean, it's not, but I find that fascinating that they couldn't recognize it then, the importance. And I just read a little further about the extension of this boundary too, about just how far this boundary really was.
we covered everything, from the Columbia County line.
Yeah. All the way to Fort Gordon. I mean, that's a boundary.
Yes. We had a number of students that lived on post that attended school at Tutt. Yes. So.
Okay. That's 1, 2, 3.
And I did look at some school-specific data. Might be a little dated. This is what was on the current on the website.
Yeah.
And it's just looking at the current school demographics and looking at the circle graph there in the middle of the page for both of them. You can see prior to it, and I know with the changing of the boundaries, those numbers will change, particularly when you take the but the Sue Reynolds feeder out of it, send them out, those numbers will change some, but you can see that overwhelmingly both schools have populations of minority students.
Okay.
I think as of this data that's on the website, Langford was showing 84% of black students, and if you're doing black-white, only 7% white, and Tutt was 71% versus 19%.
Those numbers are still very similar. So Langford is 85 and Tutt is 75% black now. So they're very close still.
And not necessarily building related, but just the school person and looking at the backside of that, at student performance. You can build all the buildings you want to build, but the numbers that's shown on the back there, you've got to have something in place to ensure that students are being prepared I've done work with, in addition to funding facilities, I've done educational specifications with building and so forth to support the academic side of this construction. And hopefully, we're taking that into consideration as we're building this building here that's going to facilitate the learning.
Well, one of the things that I think they paid specific attention to is some more, hands-on project-based learning space that's really important to kids. I think that performance sometimes is enhanced by disinterest and, sitting in rows and listen to somebody just talk up front is not the way kids learn anymore. And so you have to find plenty of different opportunities to do that. That's why I get really excited first about the IB program, because it is very hands-on, and I love the exploratories because, again, they're out of their seats, they're working towards something.
And I would hope with an IB program that it would pull some of that community back in,
Yep.
because that diversity it facilitates enrichment of the individuals.
Yep.
So I would hope so.
I would hope so too. I think, and as you know, and you've been in this long enough to know, the right leadership coming in the building, and not to say that the right leadership isn't there right now, but I don't know that answer. But the right leadership, and then the right teaching staff in the building is important, and having qualified teachers in there to do the work. And so, one thing that you do know is the district struggles at the middle school level, especially, to have certified teachers.
And this, I think, this is across the board struggling. I've got something recently, maybe a couple of weeks ago, that over 50% or close to 50% of the teachers in the school district are non-traditional teachers.
Yep.
They did not go through a teacher preparation program.
Yep. And that's concerning.
Original program from the last high school graduation that took place there at Tutt.
This is fascinating on the funding, by the way. It's I want to read that first part really quick too. That's amazing. Here you go.
That's Donald's in our class.
That's your class.
Yes, we were a class of 70. We have members of the other graduating class, but that's one of the board members that was not able to make it today.
All this is exciting to me because I came to Tutt in 1967,
Okay.
and I went off to school and came back and I taught a year at Tutt.
Really?
So it's just, I'm looking at it from a different, looking at it from a
Oh yeah.
big head boy running around campus playing in the band. Somebody who came back to teach at Tutt. And it's really exciting.
That's-
Why don't you get a chance to read that little piece I put in there? It does reference when they built the gymnasium, and once again, that's a topography issue because it had to be two-story because of the drop-off that was there. And there was discussion in board minutes that to move forward with approving that, I think it cost like twice what the original building cost, $500 and some thousand. That was with the gym and the new wing. But in order to get one board member's vote, they had to include room for music in the lower level, in addition to what was set aside for the industrial arts piece. As we around here know that the music piece became the cornerstone for a lot of stuff that went on at Tutt. We were a small school, but were well represented as far as the band and so forth. On the other hand, the industrial art piece never developed. I think we had one class of drafting, I think it was, but you had that equipment and so forth was just sitting over there in that empty room back there. We never implemented the industrial arts piece.
Davidson.
Right, Davidson, he did the
Mills,
drafting
did a few
piece.
shoe boxes and
Yeah.
back in the days.
So I reference all that stuff in that little piece I did. So next steps.
So actually, I want to ask you one more question before on that next steps. Is there anything like in the current building? I mean, we have trophies, we have those kind of things. Obviously, we want to bring forward, display, do those kind of things. Are there anything like in the original building that when when Benton's out there looking, or the design professionals are out there and the architects are looking, is there anything that should be pulled forward that has any sort of historical or legacy value?
structurally, and y'all may have been in the building more than I have, once I left, but, structurally, I can't think of anything, but there was a portrait that, of Mr. Tutt, that on that initial opening of the school, he and his wife and the entire community just came in and they presented a portrait of Mr. Tutt, and it hung there. The office used to be right across from the cafeteria where we were the
Right.
other evening.
Mm-hmm.
It hung in that hallway right there at the office. I have no idea.
The last time I was there as a teacher, it was way in the back of the library, in the corner. Because a lot of the kids didn't even know who Mr. Tutt was. So that picture should be still in that school, in the back of the library now.
Okay.
That was when I was teaching there, and that's been
Well,
quite a
since
while.
I saw it.
I mean, it's rare for like those portraits to just disappear and fall off the face of the earth, and they typically stay in the building somewhere. Well, I'm going to make sure that if there's that's an effort to look for that. I mean, if it exists in that building, we'll find it.
But outside of that, as far
Okay.
as I'm concerned, I can't
Yeah.
think of anything.
Because I taught in the portable unit because it was so crowded.
We're not going to bring any of those over. Well, I know that I asked the question a lot. Again, I grew up in the Midwest, and when we did all the consolidations of the old buildings into the consolidated schools, they used to bring forward like the concrete of the name of the building. They would put those in the order of the building so they could bring a little history forward. That was the only part of old buildings you could ever bring forward. But okay, all right. I
don't
just
even
wanted.
think that was a cornerstone on
I don't
that
think
chart
so
or
either.
anything.
There's,
I remember seeing that cornerstone.
No, I don't think it was.
Yes, it was. It was something there, you know, when you walk in from the street to go in like the office where the cafeteria was at. It was a plaque right there.
Yeah, come to think about it, was it metal,
It could, no, I think it was granite or
granite
something.
or something?
You look to the right,
Yeah,
right up against the
maybe
wall,
that-
there was a plaque.
Maybe about 11 by 11 or something.
Yeah,
like that.
that, well, it was, they could have moved it, I don't know, but
Yeah.
I do remember it was a little plaque right there.
Yeah,
When you walked into the door,
Okay.
to the right, there was a plaque right there.
yeah.
okay. Again, I would suggest to the architect that they should look for those kind of little things that would be really like kind of cool elements
Right.
in a building. So we'll definitely do that for that. So I think from the standpoint over here on the naming, I will reach out and ask Dr. Bradshaw and get advice about how to accelerate the naming.
Okay.
And share the concern, because I would agree, just lay it to rest would be a lot easier than to prolong that. So I will definitely pass that along for you,
Okay.
and we'll get a response to you as quickly as we can.
Great.
And then I think that Dr. Bradshaw will let you know kind of the makeup of the meeting again. The expectation is this group will be involved on that committee, so
Yes.
we appreciate that.
Okay.
And then anything in design as they move forward, we'll send you some updates on these if we can find anything
Yeah, sounds
in
good.
relation to these.
Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Okay.
but I think that as they go through the process, I think the intent is that now that we're in this more 5-year view, that as construction goes on, they have me to reach out to the community too. So I imagine there'll be some progress meetings on the construction that we'll certainly send you an invite to invite the board, and maybe that's an easier way to do that through you.
Okay.
As we go through this next couple of years of design and construction, because we'll have continuous updates on there for you. Anything we can do for you.
Facilitate our wishes.
Okay. I'm glad to do that. I'm glad to do that. I was just it's interesting how when I get involved in a process like this, how you've done this long enough on the outside, on the consultant, on that side, to know that when you write a scope of work, it's never really the scope of work, right? And as I sat with the Josie Preservation Group this morning on the phone, and we're talking about the future and how to get career involved in that. One of the things I promise them, and I share this story a lot, because Dr. Bradshaw, when they brought me on as a consultant, Dr. Bradshaw called me the day of the board meeting and says, I want you to understand that we're not hiring you for a year. If you're committed, you're going to be committed to us. And I'm like, Well, you don't hear that every day as a consultant. Like, yeah, you're like,
No,
you
go
don't.
ahead and do
And I think Matt can attest to. Matt's been with me 10 or 12 years now. He can attest that I do a lot deeper dive than a typical. And my commitment is that I'm invested as much as you want me to be invested, or where you don't want me invested. But the thing is, I'm invested, and I will tell you, I'm never going to live in Augusta. Never going to pay taxes here. Never going to do that. But I really care about education, and I really care about the legacy of the kids and how this is going to work. And so, I've worked in the South long enough to understand that there's been issues that we need to overcome.
True.
And the only way we can do it is sitting together and breaking bread together and doing that. So we'll do this, and we'll do it right. And I'm really excited about this. And again, I'll be as committed as you need me to be to this
Sounds good.
for you as your advocate.
And I have a curiosity question, not
Sure.
related to
Yeah, yeah.
our topic. The technical magnet school, does it become similar to the IB program, like a school within a school type of structure? Because I've heard several questions. I've watched most of the
Yep.
visits online. It seemed like that kept popping up, and people it stayed fuzzy for them. I'm
Yeah.
trying to determine whether a physical structure will be TCM or whether TCM will be embedded into.
So this is, I mean, unfortunately, this is the one that the clarity is not all the way there yet. And the reason for that is that I believe that ARJ can expand a little bit its program and offerings to students with part of what our TCC, because they offer a STEM pathway.
Yeah.
And that's a natural fit into an ARJ pathway. And so I do think what I'm excited about is there's some growth opportunities for that magnet program. Now, how RCTCM will exist in the future is kind of it's not that it'll disappear and the opportunities for RCTCM will disappear. I do think it's going to look a little different programmatically, but still be the core of it. And it's still not a great answer because we have some curriculum development things to work in. Now, the other thing is that we're not completely sold on the idea of ARJ moving out to the RCTCM building.
Yeah.
And those are things that we need to continue to have discussions on. And for me, it does make a lot of sense that it stays near the medical campus because of its pathway. And again, our goal was to strengthen the Laney feeder pattern by making a programmatic move, we felt. But we're revisiting that, certainly.
Okay.
There's a lot of things that come into play, but I think the first and foremost thing is to get the clearest answer on that. The district is in the process of developing a district-wide vision for career and technical opportunity, which includes the programs out at the high schools. Because, you get out to Hepzibah, they're not very close to the center, and so they need some programs out there, but how does that align to the district?
Right.
And so they have opportunity at Hepzibah, but they also have opportunity if they want to come into the comprehensive school. So I wish I had a clearer answer, but until we programmatically get that right,
Understood.
and then we'll make a good decision. But I think that even when we're talking about an ARJ move or that, it's a programmatic discussion first. It's not a facilities discussion first,
Right.
although the location matters in this case.
Yeah. And that's a curious question. My kids, of course, gone. My grandkids.
Yeah.
The last one, she graduates this year, so I don't have a dog in the fight.
Yeah.
So it was just curiosity on my part.
Well, and I appreciate the question because I think it's something that we'll continue to have a discussion on. And again, I think one of the things I tell, and hopefully that you all will see this too as members of this community, is that one of the reasons for developing a longer range plan is to identify at least a pathway to start and then make adjustments and pivot when you need to. Before it was a one-year plan, a one-year plan, a one-year plan, and that doesn't do anybody any good because there's no vision in how that all links together. And so, there's some critics out there that talk about, the schools that have been built and why they were built at what time. Now, they were good decisions, I think, but to piece it all together over time is hard.
And it comes, and the money is always tied into it, so you can't make anybody too angry anyway, because they've got to vote in favor of the splash when
That-
it comes back up.
Yeah, so that's the balance of it. So you're like, what do you do right? And then, because I do think that one of the things that we face in this district is a high school enrollment that's projected to go to 7,500 kids, and there's 12,200 high school seats in this district.
It's always been too many.
And it's like, it
Yeah,
feels like,
capacity.
at this point now, the current size of your high schools, average of 1,000, that's 4.5 empty high school buildings. And if you think about that, and then, of course, then you're fighting tradition, legacy, that gets in the way of stretching our resources too thin, not having certified teachers because they're not around certified teachers. It is a domino, and what I do think is that, first and foremost, I think that, not that past administrations, it's hard to throw stones anywhere, but I think that Dr. Bradshaw has the right vision for this district. And, you know, one of the things is getting out in front of this community more and having conversations like this that haven't existed in the past. And be genuine
Yes.
in your outreach. And that's, I will tell you that I work a lot across this country. Dr. Bradshaw is committed to that, and I really enjoy my relationship with him and his staff.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to speak very briefly with him when you all were at Tutt, and I received that sense as well that, you know, he's on board with making things happen in a way that supports the kids and minimize the political forces that have created some of the issues that we're currently working with.
There's a lot of history there.
Some of the issues go way back.
Oh, yeah, I'm not calling names, but anyway. Well, any questions from any of my board members? And just for the record, I guess you want each board member to state their names? So
Yep,
that-
we'll do that really quick so everybody's recorded to be here, and then we'll just make sure. And there's a microphone there, so just say your name really quick, and then we'll get it on
Here,
record.
I can walk it around.
Yeah.
Make sure we get
We do appreciate your time.
Well, thanks for.
it. Mary
I know lunch
Elam's
is sometimes hard to
Guidebook.
get to, but thanks for that.
Donald Davis.
Mascot with a mascot.
Let me, you know what?
Molly Kenner Carpenter.
That too. That's a good question.
Kenneth Vinson. Lawrence Washington.
Lawrence Bennett.
So, good question here about the mascot. So, Benton, and I don't mean to throw you like this one just out in there. What's kind of the past of like mascots, not just the name, but mascots? What
Okay.
happens? With
Usually school. He gave me the finger, you saw that.
We've been getting along all this time. So typically, how it's been done in the past for the last two new schools, there's a naming committee. And the committee is usually made up of community members and faculty and staff. And they meet, they consider all the historical events. There's usually a historian from AU that comes and sits in the committee. I can't think of the doctor, you remember the doctor, you lost it too. But we have a historian come in and give them,
Walker, either Dr. Walker or Caldwell.
Leanne Caldwell.
Yeah, I know
She
that.
comes usually as part of the committee and just discuss the history of the area that we are considering the naming of the schools and bring some background information. The committee makes a recommendation to the board. The board has the final say on it. But just historically in the past, when we've combined two schools, they take on the two names as a practice. There's Craig Halton, which was Halton and Craig Elementary. Lamar Millage, which was Lamar and John Millage, that was bound together. There's Jenkins White, Levi White, and Clara Jenkins. So what you're hint, what I'm saying is there is a precedence for it.
Right.
Okay.
Is there a history on the mascot? Like,
Now the mascots are, when we combine the school, that committee will come up with a mascot. While we were talking, we looked at the school colors, they're the same.
Oh,
And
Yeah.
Langford, this is not their original mascot.
okay,
Originally, they were the Red Devils,
okay.
and
They not anymore.
they're not anymore. They had the Christian rights that they could be the devils. So they went back, and that's when they became the Lions.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So
What's the history of the Dragons? Is it
the Dragons,
was there when I got there.
That's a while.
As far as how it was selected, I don't know, because I
Okay.
was a little fellow then, but the
Yeah.
colors and the mascot, were, with the, building of the school, and they've maintained that
Okay.
since 1959.
Interesting, okay. Yeah. My little hometown in Indiana I grew up in, which is literally about 800 people. Like, it's not even a dot on the map, but our school was Camden, we were the Red Devils, and that was my first basketball team. I was a Red Devil, so.
Can't be the devil.
I'm telling you, I didn't think anything of it. I went to church every Sunday and I was a Red Devil.
I can't remember exactly when that changed, but it was,
Yeah, that's happened a lot across, yeah, no doubt, yeah.
so, and I guess kind of something that's different from Craig Halden and Levi White and so forth is that you have the, sports program that middle schools have and high schools have, and so that brings a different dynamic in there when you're looking at a mascot. But move forward with the name first, and if we had to prioritize, I would say that
That's a
be
top,
there.
okay.
And mascots, we would love to have it, but if that's a negotiating piece, you know.
Yeah. I think it's a unique one. You don't see a lot of dragons around, so.
Who wanna be a lion?
Who wanna be a-
fire-breathing
That's
dragon?
That should be the logo on the door.
Dragons are very popular right now.
Oh,
Harry
yeah.
Potter, Game of Thrones.
Yeah, that's true. That is
Dragons
true.
are having a moment.
They are having that moment. Keep it going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I invite you to, let's, if you want to eat or if you want to take your lunch with you or whatever, but I'm so happy I got to meet you. I am, and I'm excited where this is going. And we'll just, if you have a question, you send it through Dr. Davis and that's fine, we can get it. But if you need anything else, just let us know and I'll make sure I get these answers back to you promptly.
Sounds great.
Okay.
Thank you.